So, guys, I want to talk about why it is so important for millennials and Gen Z to recognize that love is there waiting for them. Love is there waiting for you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Something has happened, and we're going to take a look at a statistic that really solidifies this and shows you the bulk of this data. But something has happened where my generation, I'm a millennial, but my generation and the generation that's right behind us, Gen Z, has started to reject marriage. It started to reject even long term committed relationships. It started to reject love, in other words. Um, and that includes parental love. That means also that millennials and Gen Z are not really settling down to have children as well. And I am writing a book about being a millennial and finding love because that is something that I take great pride in, but something that honestly was a miracle because I just had resolved myself that, oh, I'm just another millennial, another statistic who's never ever going to settle down. Because you can look outside, you can look at the media, and I know a lot of you millennials and Gen Z will resonate with this. And things just seem so dire. Things seem so negative and heavy and weighted to the point where you think, oh my goodness, I don't think I'll ever even find any love, because you look at it, we've become so isolated, so socially awkward that like we can't even connect and flirt with someone or even date or try to court someone towards marriage without Tinder, without an application to help us, because that's just kind of how lacking in communicational skills that we have become. And then with that added layer of that, you also have to worry about your safety, which is a very real thing. You have to worry about if I go on this Tinder date, if I invite them back to my house or if I invite them back to my apartment, am I going to end up on the 5 o'clock news? That right there, it sounds trivial. It sounds like a TikTok meme, but it's something that is so true. It's something that's so true. But beyond the safety factor, I think that we also have abandoned the will to take a chance. If you think about it, love is a risk. Love is a great risk. And I think that a lot of millennials and Gen Z have adopted this sort of, not to quote Chris Brown and Lil Wayne, but these hoes ain't loyal type kind of, ideal around love and not letting anyone close. We've come into this discard culture because people have done it to us, and so we turn around and hence we do it to other people, and it's just sort of this self fulfilling prophecy and this perpetuating cycle that's really really unfortunate. And not only does this sort of um, um, come as a personal hit and a personal loss for us on the individual level, because to live a life without love, and maybe some of you might say, hey, take marriage out of that, because marriage is just a piece of paper, and I hear you with that. But okay, living together with someone is different from getting married to someone. It's different from you signing a contract, going to the government, filling out all this paperwork, merging and funneling your finances together, committing to someone to say, hey, I've got your back through good and bad. That's much bigger than, just coexisting with someone. People can do it. People can do it, and they can treat that cohabitation just like marriage. I am not saying that people don't, but that is truly the rare exception. We've come into this time where we have more equality. Feminism has allowed women to really be able to garner more opportunities in education and the workplace and government in ways that we did not before, in entertainment. But those patriarchal roles are still there, okay? Those traditional norms are still there. And that is the exception, cohabitation. So honestly, if you are running away from marriage because you got scared at some point, and it's okay to get scared at some point with all that we've been through. We saw our parents have dysfunctional marriages. We saw our parents divorce, and then we entered into blended families. We saw society sort of collapse with many stock market crashes. We have, in our adulthood, really not had the financial and the career stability that we would hope for. There's a lot of changing factors out there, not to mention this toxicity that is social media. Basically, we've had a hard deal. And it's honestly understandable to give up on love, okay? You can say, I didn't give up on love, I gave up on marriage. Well, that's another thing. I would say that we've also become extremely defensive. Putting all that aside, you know, putting all that aside, if you see a decline in marriage, you see a decline in people having children, not only is that horrendously sad, on an individual level, just, many people being lonely and isolated. And you can say, oh, I have friends and I can go to the movies with friends, but it's really not the same. If we're just going to go ahead and be real right here, that's not the same as transformative love between two people. And, but taking that out of that, it does have societal and sort of, deeper implications for our species, for the human race. What's going to happen when we all just become, sort of robotic, asexual people? And I don't want to sound like a crazy, conservative spouting off weird, arcane views. But if you think about some of the stuff that grandma said, that granddad said, that mama said, that big papa said, that big mama said, it's kind of true. That is a sad world that I got to think of when people are all isolated in their little pods with no interaction with anyone else. Now, of course, that's an extreme view. That's more like out of a science fiction film than what could actually happen. But we could get close to there. We almost are close to there. Look at the amount of isolation. Look at the amount of just, even at the granular level, social awkwardness. Look at how many people are so socially awkward that they really can't function in a social setting, whether that be in a workplace or with friends or with family or romantic love. So again, this has bigger sociological questions, psychological questions. It has questions for the sanctity and the safety of our species, of the human species. On an individual level, there's many things at play. So I have the statistic here that I pulled up. I thought that it was interesting. It's from the Pew Research Center, and it's entitled 3 in 10 Millennials Live with a Spouse and their own child, well below the share for previous generations at a comparable age. So, 9% of millennials are alone. 9% of Gen X are alone. Okay, 8% of boomers are alone. 3% of silent are alone. 13% of millennials have a spouse with no child. 13% of Gen X has a spouse with no child. 14% of boomers have a spouse with no child. 12% of silent generation has a spouse with no child. Now, this is where it gets kind of creepy, I think, for me. So, 30% of millennials have a spouse and a child. 40% of Gen X has a spouse and a child. 46% of boomers have a spouse and a child. 70% of silent generation has a spouse and a child. So basically, to break that down, As far as having a spouse and a child, our great grandparents, okay, maybe some people, their grandparents, 70% of them had a spouse and a child. Us, we're 40% lower than that. That is a huge, huge gap. And if you think that that's crazy, I mean, the silent generation was born, what, in like the very last of the 1890s? I mean, don't quote me on that date, but something like that, between 1890 and 1900. Early 1900s, we'll just say. So just basically like 100 years ago, people had a spouse and a child or children double times the amount that we do. I understand that, like, populations have also grown, so I know that to a certain extent, we need to not be popping out as many puppies as they did back then, because, there's enough mouths to feed in the world already. But there is also, sort of family birth control, like natural birth control, to kind of limit those numbers down to at least 1 or 2 or 3 puppies. You don't have to be cranking out 7 and 8 and 9 puppies like they did. But I mean, still. But beyond that, again, to get back to the transformative benefits that love brings into your life and that family brings into your life, it would be really sad if our generation was the one to kind of drop that, because these numbers are really staggering. If in 100 years it basically cuts in half, but population is like way, way, way bigger, that means like we basically are risked at dying out at some point. I'm not a scientist. I don't want to be like a social scientist, but if you just use basic skills of mathematics, if with just 100 years, if we keep on that same rate, if people don't, coexist together and cohabitate and love one another, get married, have children, have families, eventually mathematics says that the human race would die out, And even to just take statistics out of that for a second, let's finish the table. But I do want to say there is a beautiful, beautiful yin-yang sort of natural addition to humanity, to nature, to the universe that love brings. I mean, this is not just about statistics. It's about, weathering through life, through youth and through old age with someone who you share your life with. I mean, there's such richness in that. I don't think that people are really thinking through the implications of YOLO culture, or like, these hoes ain't loyal kind of mentality, and what it could cause in the future. If you look at the rest of the statistics, to not go off on too much a tangent, it says millennials with no spouse and a child is at 12%, and in comparison to boomers, it's at 9%. Silent generation was at 4%. As far as parents, so 14% of millennials are living with their parents. 11% of boomers are living with their parents. What the heck? Oh my God. Now that right there is just terrible for all of us. That means everybody is either struggling poor or is extremely socially awkward and can't move out of their parents' basement. 14% of millennials are living with other family compared to 3% of boomers. And 7% of millennials is living with non-family compared to 9% of boomers. But like I said, the most staggering in this, I think, is, the amount of millennials who have a spouse and or children. It's just like, ooh. Now, with that being said, actually, if you look at the spouse and no child, because I don't have children yet. My husband and I, we don't have children yet. So if you look at spouse with no child for millennials compared to boomers, spouse with no child is 13%. And it was 14% of boomers back when they were that age, between 23 and 38. So I guess that's pretty normal. It's what's more staggering is the spouse and a child. We're not growing our families. But guys, the love is out there waiting for you, you know? It really, really is. I look at so many individuals within our generation, even when I'm looking online on platforms like TikTok and even here on YouTube, on Instagram, and I see so many women who are so beautiful on the outside, and they have makeup on and they have nice clothes on and they make the right jokes, but inside of them I see people who are extremely insecure. And I see the same thing for men. I see men who look like they smell really nice and they wear nice clothes and they try to keep up their appearances, and even the people who feel as if they're outcasts in societies. Maybe they don't have the most standard ideal of beauty. I just look at my generation, I see so many people who are not confident in their ability to move forward and cross those major life paths in life, like getting married, like having children. I think, like I've said in many videos, I think it wraps back around to narcissism. It's not that these individuals are narcissists, but it's just that our world has become so narcissistic, and it's just like, look out for yourself. Do what you can in this short term and don't think about the future. Just do this and to do this to get ahead. And it's not very sustainable. It's not very sustainable. It won't keep you warm at night. And no matter what you think, there is someone out there who is waiting for you. I guarantee it. There's someone for everyone. The question is, are you going to do the self-work, the self-care, the self-love, the healing of your inner child that it takes to be ready when you do meet that person? Because it doesn't just happen when you're saying, oh, my mommy says I'm perfect, somebody come marry me. It's like, it doesn't work like that. You got to work on yourself, both inside and outside, but are you ready to take that plunge? Because it's out there waiting for you. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time.